implementation and continuing the momentum. My name is Darla Eimers. I am from Northwest Michigan Works Traverse City. I'm going to introduce your speakers today. First, just a couple reminders, and I'm sure you've heard them repeatedly throughout the conference, which is to shut your phones off or turn them down. There's going to be a survey at the end of the conference sent to you via email, so fill that out, get back to them. They're going to choose a lucky winner to receive a one-night stay here at Soaring Eagle. And also all the materials from the presentations are going to be available on the website of the conference, so feel free to check that out anytime. Now we have Krista Johnson, Manager for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, Title I Section, and Workforce Development Agency for the State of Michigan. And Maggie Sales, WIOA State Coordinator, Workforce Development Agency in the State of Michigan.
Let's start. First of all, there was a misprint in the program. I am not a manager, although I play one on TV. So I'd just like to let you know that. This is being recorded, so I'll try not to be as inappropriate as I have been in the past. And they are offering free drinks at the one next door, so if everybody wants to leave and go next door, now's your opportunity. Okay. So today we're going to work through the Workforce 101, or sorry, it's not going to be Workforce 101. So I know there's many people in here as we continue to move through this conference who want answers, who want implementation, who want technical assistance. And anyone who sat in the session next door on the boards heard that this is a process, and it's a 1 to 2 year transition. So we're not at that. Everybody, we can give you every policy and we can give you every answer, but really what we want to do is work through this with you. So let me tell you what today we're going to, let's see if I can work this. Which one puts me forward? There it is. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the progress, and we're going to celebrate the progress because we have made a lot of progress. Not only at the state level, but at your local level, whether it's from the director to service providers to case managers. Everybody's been affected by the change. So we want to also work through the key guidance that has come out and how it's going to affect you and how you can read it and get information from that. We want to provide the update on the status of the regulations that were out for comment. And how many pages was it? 400 and some? And yeah, that was just the one section I read, okay? 400 and some. And then there's obviously 3 other titles that had that. So there were, that's right now being reviewed. There was questions that were sent in. USDOL is reviewing that. They say that it's going to come back out to us. We'll see when that happens. But that's really going to be some great guidance when it is brought out there. And then we want to talk about key next steps, because that's really, I think, what a lot of you are here for and how we can work together. We hope today is interactive. We want your questions. We want your comments. So I'm going to kind of help field questions and see what we can do. We do have some cards if people want to write down their questions as opposed to asking them out loud. But we really do hope this will be interactive, and it's going to be up to you how long the session goes. I do want to say that as I got here, as I started yesterday, and I was packing putting stuff in the car, and my husband's like, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Can you imagine, did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that they were going to ask me to speak again?" And he said, "What makes you think you're in my wildest dreams?"
As Maggie mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit here to begin with about some of our key accomplishments, because really, again, there's been a lot of good work that's been done over the past 14 months. We have defined regions in place here in Michigan as part of the Governor's Regional Prosperity Initiative, and now we're starting to really see some alignment in the local areas with those regions. We just recently completed the required local area designation process under WIOA, and so now, as of October 1st, we have 16 local areas down from the 24 that we've had in the past. So that's one key area where I really feel like Michigan is ahead of a lot of the other states when it comes to this aspect. There's a lot of other states that are still just sort of getting started with this process of defining their regions and kind of figuring that all out. And we sort of had a head start here on that process, so that's great.
Can I ask how many knew that we went from 24 to 16? Okay, great. We got the message out.
Another accomplishment that I'd like to talk about is we have a WIOA compliant state board that's been established and is functioning. So even beyond just being established, it's actually functioning. Their onboarding and orientation process has been completed. They have approved bylaws in place and really a governance structure as well. There's an executive committee. We've had some conversations around our standing committee structure. And the board has actually already held 2 quarterly meetings. They first met in June, and then we just recently met here in September. And there's really been some key policies already that have been approved by the board that required their consultation. And so really this board, they really hit the ground running, and there was a lot of work even at the front end for them to take on, even as they were just starting to learn about what is their role and their functions and their responsibilities. And so the key policies that have already been approved by the board were around the areas of local area designation and then local workforce development board certification. And I think now the direction also that the board is having conversations around is really that strategic direction that we've heard a lot of conversation about. We heard it this morning in the session around the local boards, really starting to strategize around, okay, for the next 12 months, we understand what our role and function is and what we have to do, but what do we want to do? What are some of our goals that we want to accomplish as a board? So definitely important work going on there. Also, prior to the implementation of WIOA on July 1st, we made significant modifications to our OneStop management information system so that local areas were able to capture the information from the get-go that's necessary for WIOA participant reporting and tracking. And so I think that was another key accomplishment that took a lot of legwork and examination of the policy and working together not only as program folks but with our MIS folks, and then certainly hearing from those of you in the local area around what were your needs and really sort of getting that nailed down. And I think we're in a really good position with that as at the federal level they continue to kind of figure out what they're going to be looking for when it comes to participant reporting and tracking. Related to that, the necessary modifications to the state's fiscal system were also in place. And so that's our management of awards to recipients system. And certainly, again, that's another area where we're waiting for some additional guidance from the federal level around what exactly, from a fiscal perspective, are going to be our reporting requirements, what are the templates going to be. But again, having these systems in place is allowing us to capture this critical information on the front end so that we're already ready to report that information once DOL is ready with their templates and their policies and procedures. So again, great accomplishments and a lot of work at a lot of different levels to get that in place. I think another key accomplishment on the policy front, really to spearhead implementation and really driven from the your local level and working through the association. We had the WIOA Ready, Set, Go mini conference in June. And I think that was a great way to kick off WIOA implementation. And it really, again, that conference focused on all aspects of implementation. And we had participation at that conference from really all of the core partners. And there was a lot of different relevant sessions. And so I think that was really important to get us started off on the right foot. Related to that, then we had our draft program operating guidance out prior to the start of the new program year. And we're working on finalizing that guidance now based upon additional comments and feedback that we've received. So again, critical things to have in place as we started this important task of implementation. And then I think we need to spend a little bit of time on partnerships and collaboration, because those have been critical to the success that we've seen as we began implementation here in Michigan. We've seen closer collaboration at the state level and at the local levels between Titles 1, 2, and 3 of WIOA with Title 4. So as most of you are probably familiar, Titles 1, 2, and 3 are housed within the Workforce Development Agency. Those represent Adult DW, Youth, Wagner-Kaiser, and Adult Education. And then, of course, we have our Title IV partners with Michigan Rehabilitation Services and Bureau for Services to Blind Persons. So we've been having monthly implementation discussions with them at the state level, and also all of these core titles have been critically involved with beginning to draft and put together the state's unified plan that's required under WIOA. And then I think, certainly last but not least, I think this whole implementation journey that we've all been on these past 14 months has really resulted in greater partnership between the WDA and the Michigan Works Agency. And I feel like this truly has been a partnership, and we've all sort of felt like we're all in this together, and we need to help and support each other. And I think you saw that really start from the very beginning when the law was first signed, when we put together implementation teams for WIOA. And all of those teams had local level representation on them because we really knew that we needed that voice and to work together with analyzing the new law. And also WDA and MWAs collaborated on the comments that we submitted in response to the notices of proposed rulemaking that were published this spring. And also we worked together on the dispatch dialogues that we had earlier this year, again, to share critical pieces of information around key topics. And then, of course, we had the Ready, Set, Go conference in June. So I think over the past 14 months, this has been great accomplishments, and we thought it was important to take a few minutes to really celebrate how far we have come. Because this has been a lot of work, but we've certainly made a lot of progress. And I feel like as we're going around at the national level and talking to other states, we really are out ahead of the game and really at the forefront of implementation here in Michigan, and we're ahead of our counterparts in other states. And I think that's really a testament to the partnership that we've had.
So I think the first thing you all need to do is give yourself a round of applause for where we have come, because it has not been easy. We're done. Hear that? We got applause. All right. Oh, I got more. Okay. So this is an opportunity for you guys to kind of share the accomplishments you have done either in your area, your local area, your region. I think that one of the great things that the state was able to accomplish was that no one thought was going to happen was a change to OSMIS. And we were able to, it may not be perfect, but it's pretty darn good right now. And there are other states out there that are taking information on paper, okay? So that's a great thing. So as you guys have looked at what's happening and think about when this first came out and y'all looked at it and went, are you kidding me? What's happened since then? What are good things? Is OSMIS working for you? Are there still things out there? How is Mars? Those are things I see at the state level. What are you guys seeing at the local level? We really want to hear from you. Along with, ask the questions. We can tell you what we don't have answers for. But remember, right now, what have you done since July 1 of 2014, when this came about, that has put you in this position, and why you're here? Really, you haven't accomplished a damn thing. Oh. I'm on camera, all right, I'm sorry. Help me. Okay.
I think, Kristen mentioned the collaboration between the state and the locals. I think there's been a lot of good collaboration between the locals.
Absolutely.
In terms of, sitting down and discussing, what obstacles do we have to deal with, and, getting ideas from one another. So there's just been a lot of good dialogue.
So really that peer-to-peer learning.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's excellent.
Other things you guys have done. What's been different? Did you bring people together? Mary?
I'm very proud that Region 6 has accomplished a merger of 2 MWAs, including meetings of the LEO and new WDV in a time frame that we didn't think was possible, but we did.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Deb?
I would build on that, the fact that the UP is now one region, that we took 3 MWAs and merged together. A lot of hard work and developing local policies and service delivery now that is consistent across the board for all of our 15 counties.
They have the most acreage in any region, absolutely. Other things you guys want to celebrate, that you want to, share what's happened. Could be your service delivery method, because you're bringing in new people, you're looking at new things. Sharon?
Well, we brought in adult ed providers. They're now co-located in our service center, so that was one good thing that we hadn't done before.
Excellent, excellent. Other things? So you guys need to really keep in mind all the good things that you have done, because this is continuing, and we're going to get into what that continuation means, and how we can continue to celebrate what we've done, how we can put it before the feds, USDOL, to say this is what Michigan is accomplishing. I think that we are setting the tone here that even though we don't have all the answers, we're not done. So that's very important that you understand, especially as we just talked about the WDA and MWA collaborations, and hopefully you're feeling that and seeing that, and that we are all in this together. I always say that when I go out to a local area and we're providing either technical assistance or doing some sort of review or just seeing what's going on, that when you are doing well, we are doing well. And that's what gets to USDOL. So. Oh, I was. Oh, I'm next. I forgot. That was it. So, of course, as we celebrate and we move forward, there's always challenges with everything. I think that one of the big ones, as I just talked about, we don't have all the answers. And why is that? Is there anyone from USDOL in the room? Excellent. They're next door. So we've had the lack of timely guidance. So we're really not sure, and we're, I know, I just see it. I see George is jumping out of his chair going, give me the answers, and we can't. So, but there's the lack of timely guidance. Inconsistent messaging. We don't always, we just don't always hear what we want to hear. We're not quite sure what we're going to hear. So one of the things right now is that we're saying that it went into effect July 1, 2015, and that's where we continue to work. And then we have the U.S. Department of Ed on the other side saying, no, it's July 1st, 2016. That's inconsistency on their part. Right? So we've got to blame somebody. I know who I'm blaming. Okay. So, am I going backwards or forwards? Oh, look at that. I can barely work a smartphone, okay? So, the lack of meaningful technical assistance. Again, we are not answering your questions. We get that. And when we're out there in the hallway and we're talking to you and we see someone coming, I see Sharon Reed coming at me and I know she's going to ask me a technical question, I all of a sudden have to run to the restroom. So I've gone to the restroom a lot today. But we need to get that out there, and we hope that it is coming in. Our intent, of course, is as we receive that we are sharing it and we are sharing that technical assistance. Because again, when you're looking good, we're looking good. It's very important.
I think part of what I would add there too, Maggie, I think kind of the mode that DOL's been in has really been that listening session mode. And frankly, those have not been that I personally haven't found those that informational, and I think we feel like they need to move beyond that point right now and be able to actually provide some real technical assistance that has some value beyond them just listening and sort of hearing our feedback, but then not answering the questions. And hopefully they will begin to move out of that phase. There's some level of indication that they're still hesitant to really comment on things until the rules are finalized. And really we're trying to push them, to give us answers where they can, and that we really can't wait for those final regulations. We have to be moving forward now.
And so that's it. It is the moving forward part. It's very important. And you need to know that WDA is a partner in this, so that as we can't answer all the technical questions, we look to the guidance that we have, the Act, which I think that our section, the Title I section, has read it and highlighted it and underlined it and then read it again. And then we had the NPRMs and we read it and highlighted it and read it again. And then we're trying to put that into good policy to assist our MWAs. So keep that in mind as, again, as we move forward. Those are challenges though, and they're going to be challenges. We're not resolving it today. So as we looked at, but we're definitely looking to USDOL to have more than a conversation with us. We want them to give us some answers and some technical assistance as you are out there asking that from us at the state. So
Timeline on the final rules, Krista, have we heard anything on that?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
That's coming.
So again, this is an opportunity, and maybe I said it all for you, but I definitely don't think I have. We know that there's those questions, but you know, what are some of the challenges that you still see that you are hoping that we are going to be able to guide, direct, and give technical assistance on? Everybody's hand should go up. I'm sorry, what?
How about a registration form?
A registration form, and I think we're going to get to that in our, we're talking about our manual that we had a review and where that's at. So it's coming, okay? That one's going to be there. Deb?
Performance.
What? We have performance? We're supposed to do something with that? We'll have a conversation about it, okay? So, we get that. We get performance. I can't see who's back.
Especially the earnings replacement on performance is what I'm most interested in.
And credentialing.
Oh, for God's sake. I forget I'm on camera. Somebody, Dave Tour on our left, he was supposed to, when I gave him the clue, he was supposed to just come up and like trip over it. So Dave left. I'm out in the cold. So other thing, we know, and you know, again, we know, we have heard that. And we're trying to work through, so what does it mean and how are we going to get there? Okay, so remember, keep that in mind. It is not us up here telling you what to do. It is a we situation. Okay, others.
And in modesty, will you ratio funding levels, adjusting to those? Challenging, very challenging.
And these are, I think, as we hear the questions, these are things that I, in my mind, go, okay, we need to convene something regionally and talk about this, or have a more technical, you know, something. The association has been very good at bringing what's important to you guys. So as we get that technical information, that's going to go out to you as well.
The removal of board approved credentials. What was it?
That credentialing thing, yeah, DOL. You're next door. Bad people. They're not going to get to watch this, are they? So I know credentialing goes with performance. It's all, it's kind of all wrapped together. What does that mean? What does that mean for us? Mary?
MOUs.
Yep. I think we're going to touch on that as well. So we're going to move forward on that one. I saw Sharon, did you have anything to?
Well, just interpretation, you know, even in our own office, we all interpret what we read differently, and we, you know, so I don't even know how to approach that. As far as services going from core intensive and training to, you know, basic career and individualized, it's, yeah.
Crazy.
At what point are they registered? That's whole big.
And a lot of
We're
times,
interpreting it differently.
okay, and I got to tell you, as we read things, we interpret them differently, and we have our section meetings on a regular basis to go through so that we are sending out a consistent message to you. So as you get those questions, if you want to bring them forward to your coordinator, and so we can look at that and give you, because if we're going to tell it to you, Sharon, we've got to tell it to Mary as well. Okay? Somebody else had.
High poverty area. The census tract.
Okay. So things that aren't clearly defined, and again, remember, look back to the Act, And if we can see, if we can interpret what it means, right now that's how we are moving forward with it. Okay? So I've always said, and Krista can correct me if I'm wrong because that's her job, that when we make a policy, so you got to be careful, we want to make sure we're interpreting and making it good for the system, but when we make a policy, then you must follow it. So be careful what you ask us to define as opposed to what local areas can define.
And I think we're looking at providing some technical assistance around the high poverty areas this winter. So we're in conversations with the association around how can we make that happen.
Thank you.
Plans. The fact that the state plan is due at the end of March, and yet locals have to do a plan then and submit it and have it approved by July 1st.
And that is a slide too, so that's great that you're thinking that way though. That's that forward thinking.
Wasn't the challenge when you have multiple MWAs in one region? You know, is it everybody in the rural plan and on the regional plan?
Yep. And we're going to talk about planning today.
Others.
So you can't hear some of the questions in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I found it, you just now told me that? And I can't even see you and I know it's you talking. So, the question, did you hear the question on the plan?
No.
Okay, so it's a question on the local plan and what does it mean when you have multiple MWAs in a region and how is that going to affect in your planning locally, regionally, and time-wise as well? And we're going to cover that. Did others not hear? I'm sorry. I talk loud, I project loud.
I can do a quick recap.
Okay. All right.
Yep, so just a quick recap to make sure we got everything that we heard. So there was request around registration form in meeting one. I mean, please at this point in time be using the one that was provided in the draft WIOA manual. That one aligns with the changes that were made to the MAS system. But I think we have made some tweaks to those forms in the comment and review process, so that final form will be coming out soon along with the entire WIOA manual. Challenges around performance, credentials, in-school versus out-of-school youth, and adjusting to meeting those ratios and limitations. Removal of the board-approved credentials, MOUs, so those memorandums of understanding that you're required to have with all your required partners. Ensuring that we're interpreting the language in the Act and the regulations the same way. There's always, differences of opinion. We're all human here, so we have, different interpretations, and how can we bring some consistency to that. High poverty areas, and then alignment of the state plan with the local plans, and completing the planning process and meeting the timelines for that. So since we last met in June for the WIOA Ready, Set, Go conference, there has been some key training and employment guidance letters that have come out from the United States Department of Labor that we just wanted to take a minute to highlight, because we want to make sure that you're all aware that these are out there and published, and then when you have the opportunity, you can really dig into those and read and review those.
When you want to be put to sleep at night, there you go.
Yeah. So these represent formal guidance then that we've gotten from the United States Department of Labor. And some of those include TIGO 4114, which was issued on June 26th, and that really outlines WIOA training provider eligibility requirements and how to transition from WIA to WIOA when it comes to those eligible training providers. We had TIGO 1-15 that was issued on July 1st, and that talks about the use of WIA waivers under WIOA during program year 2015. So really, how do those work? How are they applied? Some good information in there around waivers. We had TIGO 2-15, which was also issued July 1st, and that provides guidance around National Dislocated Worker Grants under WIOA, formerly known as National Emergency Grants under WIA. So if National Emergency Grants are something that you're interested in, a lot of great information about the new law in that TIGO. TIGO 3-15, which was issued on July 1st, Adult and Dislocated Worker Programming under WIOA. So again, just a little bit more guidance around adult and dislocated worker programming and the transition than what we had in the law and the notice of proposed rulemaking. And then we had TEGO 4-15, which came out on August 13th. And that really outlined a vision for the one-stop delivery system under WIOA. And I would really urge you, if you haven't had an opportunity to read that one, that's a really good read. There's a lot of information in there that really gives you a sense of what DOL's vision is under WIOA for the one-stop system.
And I'm just going to say, and I'm not going to ask who's actually read TEGLs or knows how to find TEGLs or what they mean. And I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, but I just wanted to give a brief background on what the TEGL is. And like Chris has said, that's formal guidance for us. So when that comes out from the federal government, we look at it, we get around it and say what we highlight it, we underline, we do all of that, we print it out because I like to have it right here. And it's very important. So then we take that and look to see what do we need to make state policy on? What does it call for there? What becomes important? So as you think that we sit at the bar, drink a few, and make state policy, you need to realize that we've read the TEGLs first, okay? So it's important that you kind of know how it rolls down and where it comes from. So if you are interested in TEGLs, and you know, and I encourage everybody to like just at least go over that once. The 415 vision for the one-stop delivery system is very broad, but gives you lots of information on what your system is supposed to look like. So I highly recommend that. As much as I say it will put you to sleep, I don't think that one will. So it's good stuff. So again, we look at the TEGLs. You can just Google the TEGL and the number, and it will come up, and or you can go to the USDOL website. I think that especially if there's new people are just starting in the system, gives you a background where it comes from, why we make our policies, and then it goes to the local and see where their locals are making their policies as well. I said, Deb, did you have a question?
I did. I just wanted to say, like, in a recent policy that was issued by WDA, and I believe it was the NEG sector partnership one, I really found it helpful when there was this requirement, but then the reference to the TEGL in the verbiage, so that way I went right to the TEGL to double check. So having those TEGLs inclusive not only as a resource but as a reference, but within the policy itself brings relativity to the TEGL.
Absolutely, and we do try to pull out the key pieces from the TEGLs. I mean, we don't do, obviously, a full regurgitation of the TEGLs in our policies, but we do try to pull out those key parts. So it's certainly, these are important documents for you to be referencing as well, along with the policies.
Question.
Yes?
For the TEGL 415, is that the TEGL that would apply to the upcoming data validation component, or is there another TEGL, a separate TEGL that will follow that guideline?
Lester, why did you bring up data validation?
Because it's coming up.
And Chelsea can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we're expecting a new TEGL around data validation for this year, so we need to refer to the TEGL that came out for last year's round of data validation for this year's process.
Which one, Chelsea?
0614.
So that's 0614.
And all the attachments that go with it.
Okay, in terms of, I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the status of the WIOA final regulations. And as you're aware, the draft regulations were published in April of 2015, and the comment period on those regulations closed in June of 2015. Now, the federal departments are currently considering all the comments that they received in that comment period, plus any other feedback that they've received through their listening sessions or webinars or other conversations they've been having. And they're sifting through all that feedback as they work to put together the final WIOA regulations. As I've been at some meetings nationally, some of the comments that I've heard out of DOL is that really the comments that they got in response to these notices of proposed rulemaking were not only numerous, but some of the most thoughtful comments or quality comments that they've seen. So they really wanted to commend, all the states for their comments. But I think it's also they sort of tried to intimate that then they're trying to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and really giving just consideration to all those comments. And according to the law, they're supposed to have the final regulations published by January 22nd of 2016. My personal opinion, again, based upon hearing folks from DOL speak, is I don't think they're going to make that deadline. Whenever you hear Department of Labor talk about the publishing of the regulations, now they say 2016. If you hear Department of Education talk about it, they say spring of 2016. So I think they're sending clear signals that they're really not sure that they can make that January deadline. But I think the key takeaway from here is that we cannot wait for the final regulations. We just have to keep moving forward and continue this positive momentum that we've already started. And they'll be published at the point that they're published, but we just need to proceed. Okay. So now really what we wanted to focus on today is some key next steps as we continue this momentum in the implementation process. And I think there's a couple of different areas that we're going to talk about here in terms of key next steps. And the first one I want to talk about is the regional and local strategic planning. So as you're aware, the state plan is due to the United States Department of Labor and the United States Department of Education by March 3rd of 2016. And really, where we're at with that process is all of the titles of WIOA have been meeting and working on putting together the required components of the state plan for the last several months. And we've analyzed also then the information collection requests that came out, which really provided a lot of additional content around specific programs and what DOL and DOE are looking for information-wise for those programs beyond what was really specified in the law or in the proposed rules. And so we're working on putting together our plan, and then we have, in the next few months, we're going to really be starting, once we feel like we have a good working draft, then to start to reach out to all of the stakeholders and start to get that feedback and really start to finalize our plan. We'd really like to have a final plan put in, drafted and ready for submission around the turn of the year. That's really sort of a goal that we've set for ourselves. And I think all of this, as you're aware then, the local and the regional plans obviously need to align with the state plan. So thus, we've been hearing a lot of questions around when are we going to see some guidance, when are we going to see, the state plan. We need to put our plans together. And absolutely, if you're not already working on your local and regional planning process or having those introductory conversations, then that's certainly something that you need to begin undertaking immediately. And I think we're going to be issuing guidance sometime in early 2016 around what are the requirements for you to submit into the state, the approval for your local and regional plans. But I think really if you look at the law and again look at the program-specific requirements that are in that information collection request, that's a pretty good kind of roadmap for the kind of information that we're going to ask you to submit in your plans. So hopefully that would allow you to begin moving forward if you're ready to move kind of beyond that partnership and initial conversation stage and really start digging in and putting some pen to paper and really starting to draft that plan out.
And I think your next slide will lay it out for us.
Yep. And so just to review, I'm not going to read all of these, but here are, according to the law, the required elements for regional plans under WIOA. So obviously there's going to be a mix of planning that goes on around the state, because certainly you're all going to be working on your local plans. And then we have some regions now where that region is one local area, so essentially their local plan and regional plan is one and the same, even though the content needs to be a little bit expanded under the regional plans. And then we have those of you who are in areas, regions where there's multiple local areas. And so that's a little bit more of a heavy lift for you. But again, these are the required elements according to the law for the regional plans. For the local plans, again, here are some of the key parameters that are laid out in the law in terms of the content of your local plans. And I think really what we're looking for in the planning process here, particularly when it comes to the regional plans, where there's multiple local areas in one region, is that plan is really reflective of a regional strategy that you've all developed. And as DOL has intimated to us, they don't want to see a state plan that's just 4 titles that were put together separately and slapped together. Again, keep that in mind with your regional plans. If you're a multi-local area region, we would be looking for the same thing as well. Again, all this information, I'm not going to run through it. It'll be on the slides after the conference.
And again, to review, those came directly out of the Act. So if you're looking for that information, it is not in a state policy yet, but comes directly out of the Act, so you should be able to find that, and we can assist you if you have difficulty with that.
And again, around the specific program requirements, a lot of great information in that information collection request. They really broke it out for all of the programs, even if states are doing combined plans that are including more than just the 4 required title partners. They broke out program-specific requirements. So again, that gives you really something of a roadmap to work with. Another key next step is with our local workforce development boards. We're in the process of certifying WIOA compliant local workforce development boards right now. We have a little over half of the boards that have been certified statewide. So in most cases then you've got your members identified and you've already had your board certified. We have a few areas where we've got some stuff that we're wrapping up, but fairly soon we should have all of our certified boards here in Michigan. So really then I think the key next steps with respect to your local boards is now that you have them in place, ensuring that that governance structure is in place. Do they have bylaws? Has there been a chair and a vice chair identified? And really, what is the committee structure for the board going to look like? So really sort of laying that foundation if you haven't gotten to that point yet. And then certainly, I know at the state board level, with our new Governor's Talent Investment Board that was constituted earlier this year, we had almost no members on that board now that were carryovers from the prior board. So we had almost all new members. So I don't know how many of you might be in that same situation, but certainly then the onboarding training process becomes very important. And even to some degree, if you have existing members on there, since the functions and the purposes of the boards are really different under WIOA than they were under WIA. So really making sure that you've got that onboarding process complete and they have a clear understanding of their role and their function. And then certainly ensuring that these boards are functioning. So are they meeting? Are they making decisions? Do they have their strategy outlined? And again, that's sort of where we're at with the state board is we've done, some of our required functions and we really had to. They didn't really have a lot of time to get up to speed. They had decisions that we needed them to make right away to keep us on board. But now we're having some of those strategy discussions where, okay, we know what we have to do. What do we want to do? And really setting that purpose. And that'll be important at your local level as well to really lay that foundation.
So some of the boards in the areas have completely changed because of whether the regionalization have brought people together, or that it's all new members because of the composition of more businesses. So if you are attending board meetings, you should see a difference. It's important that they understand what their charge is as well, and sometimes that's difficult. As much as many of the people in this room have worked with WIA, and today I heard, CETA, JTPA, all those things, you've been around for a while, there's going to be some board members that don't understand that, and so they need to understand that, and feel free to throw them a Teagle, see what they do with it.
memorandums of understanding, as you're all aware, local boards must execute these MOUs with the required partners, and then also with any optional partners that you have in the OneStop. And I think this is critical work that I know some of you are already undertaking and have been working on transitioning MOUs to compliance with WIOA. And we are in the process of drafting a policy issuance at the state level around memorandums of understanding. We think we have the key components down pretty well, but sort of what the holdup is on the issuance of that policy in draft form is, of course, the thorny issue of the infrastructure costs. And we really want to make sure that we have that language right. But that policy will contain a template then for you to be able to utilize. But really the key components of your MOUs, as you're beginning to, if you haven't already, have discussions around MOUs with each of the required partners, again, under WIOA versus WIA, is all of the MOUs are going to need to talk about service provision and coordination, funding, including infrastructure costs, referral strategies, inclusion strategies for those populations with barriers, and then other provisions. There's always, again, depending upon your local uniqueness, there may be other provisions that you traditionally address in your MOUs. So again, including those, and then the duration of the agreement. I mean, one of the biggest changes under WIOA is, I know a lot of the MOUs under WIA had language essentially around the duration that it was until the repeal of WIA, and we can't do that under WIOA. They're limited to their duration of 3 years. They have to at least be reviewed every 3 years, so there is sort of that check in place. So again, these are critical conversations that if you haven't started already, please begin having these conversations. I know we have a few areas that have already proceeded and to the best of their ability based on what we know, drafted some new MOUs and put them in place just given the timing that they needed them. So certainly important work that we'll be undertaking in the coming months. I think one of the next key step is really local boards, especially since we've had a lot of reconfigurations going on across the state. But even for those areas who haven't reconfigured, that are still in the same footprint that they were for WIA, really looking at examining our one-stop delivery system design as we move forward with WIOA implementation. Again, the emphasis and the focus around WIOA is very different from what it was under WIA. And so naturally, it stands to reason that how we do service and how we provide business under WIOA is going to be different. And I know a lot of you have probably already begun undertaking these changes, particularly around youth. But I think this is where it's really important that you refer to TEGO 4-15, which is the TEGO we talked about a little bit earlier that lays out the vision for the one-stop delivery system. Because that TEGO really talks about, from the federal level, what their vision is for this system. And it lays out three key categories of characteristics of high-quality one-stop centers. And those are to provide excellent customer service to job seekers, workers, and businesses, to reflect innovative and effective service design, and to operate with integrated management systems and high-quality staffing. So those are kind of the broad overarching categories, but if you dig into that TEGO, there's a number of more specific items under each of those categories.
So again, the overarching strategy, that's really what they provided for us. When they said that's the vision, so like I said earlier, remember, if you want it all spelled out, then you lose a lot of your opportunity. So look at that and see what are the opportunities, what is the vision, and then you have to decide, as the local area, how are you going to get there? So you, again, don't want everything defined. Although I understand everybody wants the answers and we want to move forward, you got to be careful what you ask for.
And I think a couple other key considerations with your one-stop delivery system design is really that local and regional footprint. And that's really what I'm talking about there is this is an opportunity to relook at how many full centers do we have versus satellites. Do we have mobile centers in our areas? Are we going virtual with some of our services and really taking advantage of those opportunities? And I think this is a critical time to sort of re-examine that, again, because we've seen a lot of reconfiguration of the local areas here over the past several months when we've moved from 24 to 16 local areas. So this is certainly an opportunity to look at how we're doing business, how we're providing service, and what is our footprint. And of course, we leave that up to you guys to figure out, because you're in these areas day in and day out, and you know the needs, and you know your clientele. But definitely, this is an opportunity for us not to just continue business as usual, but to really thoughtfully give some consideration to this. And then I would also ask that you keep in mind that for next July 1st, we need to move to use of the American Job Center Common Identifier. And so I think we're awaiting probably more specific guidance from DOL around exactly what does that mean, what are their expectations, and we certainly then would tie that into any appropriate policy guidance coming from our office, but just something to keep in mind.
So I want to give you an example of a best practice of the local and regional footprint and how they've taken a look at it. And I see Robert Shipkowski here from Detroit. I'm not going to call on you. I'm just going to give you the best practice. So I was recently working with them, and they sent their information that they have both 2 satellite centers were closed, or was it 3? 2? 2. And then their full service, their one-stop centers, they have used the data that they have been collecting over the past year, and they look to see, are we in the right places? And they realized that they were in the Detroit area, they were only in a 4 square mile footprint. So they have relocated their service centers in multi-operational buildings. Correct me if I'm saying it wrong. No, multi-operational buildings. And they now cover 20 square miles of the city, and they are within where 70% of the Detroit population is. So they took this opportunity and to see what they were doing and did that realignment. So there's, that's a best practice and something that they've done right now, and it's working. And just went and visited. It was a great review. We went there. So
I think related to service delivery design, one thing that we'll need to be tackling in the months moving forward is OneStop Certification. The state's required to certify the one-stops under WIOA, and we're planning to have guidance released around this process this winter after we've completed our required consultation with the Governor's Talent Investment Board. And I think really what we're talking about, certainly we're looking very closely at TIGO 4-15, and I think you will see that reflected in the guidance that comes out from our office. But process-wise, we're really looking at a mix of self-certification on the front end, but then during the life of the certification that we would actually come out on site and do reviews.
Laura, I think you had the questions on the local plan. Did we cover what you needed, or is there more that needs to come from us?
So I understand that if there's MWAs in a region, then each MWA would submit their local plan, and then there will have to be a regional plan.
Yep.
And is it one regional plan that is submitted on behalf of, so if there's 2 MWAs, they would submit it together?
Yes.
But if the 2 MWAs came together as one MWA, then it would just be one
Right.
and the same with just...
Right. Yep. If they're merged and there's only one local area in a region, it all becomes one and the same. The local and regional plan is together. But if there's multiple, then yep, you're submitting your individual local plans and then one regional plan. And part of why that's driven is if we go back to the requirements slides, the requirements of these regional plans I guess I would say, are much more bigger picture than a lot of the nitty gritty that we need to get into in the local plan. So there are differences there.
And somebody did ask a question on MOUs. So have we done enough on the highlight of that at this point? Are you looking for more? And I don't remember who asked it. Mary. Did we? Are you good? Did we cover at this point? And you're waiting. Okay. Mary says move along.
To be continued.
I have a question on MOUs.
Yes.
In the session we were in earlier, Krista, you remember the guy, he said something about everyone, that you do an MOU, they have to share the infrastructure cost. So would that be true of the adult ed providers that moved in? Everyone?
You mean in terms of do all the partners have to contribute to the infrastructure costs? Is that your question, Sharon?
Yes.
And I would say, I think at this point, that's our interpretation of the law. But again, infrastructure costs is really something that we're still trying to truly nail down and understand so that we can give you the right guidance. But yes, I mean, that is what the intent of the law is. But what does that mean, I think, is the question we're all still grappling with. What does that actually mean on the ground?
Okay, thank you.
So we all shifted the emphasis of youth programming to the out-of-school population versus the in-school youth population, and added the requirement that a minimum of 20% of youth funds be spent on providing work experiences to eligible youth. And for most local, based upon past experience, for most local areas, this is going to be a bit of a challenge to meet these requirements. And we do have a transition period right now this first year, but certainly, hopefully by now you've all been considering this question and been working to shift your programming and if necessary your providers, but certainly I think this is work that's going to continue over this next year towards meeting these requirements. So that's why I felt it was important to include it on this list of key next steps, because I think there's still some additional guidance that we're waiting on, but certainly we know the clock is ticking and we all have to be moving towards this. So certainly continuing to consider, are you locally, do you feel you're taking the necessary steps to ensure that when the time comes to be in compliance with these requirements that you're going to be there? And really the work experience one is in place right away. So really it's moving towards that out-of-school youth expenditure, which is the heavy lift. I think another important area to be working on, and I'm sure there's been work already going on this front, is reviewing applicable local policies and procedures to ensure that they're WIOA compliant and now ensure that they align with your strategic plan once you've developed that. So this really, A, if you haven't already begun doing this, you really need to begin doing it. But really, B, this is going to be an ongoing process. At not only the state level, we're going to continue to need to look at and review and revamp our policies, but make sure that you're doing that at the local level as well.
Can I just say, when you look at your local policies and procedures, just going to the, if it's electronic and going to the find function and looking at WIA and switching it out to WIOA does not necessarily make it compliant. So, and I'm going to say that in future program reviews, you know, we'll be looking at that. But so really, again, this is your opportunity. So you need to be looking at that and is it WIOA compliant besides just changing the name of it? So, and again, if you have questions on that, how can we assist you in interpreting, in understanding? But sometimes you guys don't want us to interpret either, so I get it.
So I think really those are the key next steps, and I don't by any means think that that's an exhaustive list, but really as we sat down and kind of talked about and planned out this session, those were really kind of some of the steps that really rose to the forefront. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Maggie at this point to close us out.
In February, there was a memorandum that went out from Christine Quinn, our director, to Michigan Works Agency directors, and it talks about the key steps for transition and implementation, and it's very helpful, and it's pretty much how we aligned this presentation. And you know, many times I know, and at the front line, you may never want to see this. It went to the directors are taking care of this. They're taking it down to, you know, the next level to take care of. But this really does lay it out well and spell it out and gives you kind of that condensed version and almost as a checklist. Am I doing this? Am I on track? So that's something, I don't know if people want it. Can I send it to them?
Or we could put it, I'm sure, on the website.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of helpful to have it all in one place. So we'll put that up with the conference materials. You may want that or not. But really now what we want to do is ask what kind of technical assistance, and that's why I went back to, you know, who asked the question, did we give you enough for right now? And that answer is probably not, because again, as practitioners, you guys want to know how to operate that program and make it right. You know, again, I get that. So what's our next steps and how can we help you? And I have questions.
Maggie, one of my questions is, and I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but since the new implementation of WIOA, and this is an OSMIS problem, in registering youth into the system, since we do not have the income requirements for out-of-school youth anymore, but we still do for in-school youth, I have 2 youth that I have not been able to get into the system because they're over the income. They are at that 5%, and I can't get them into there under 5%.
As I am not an OSMIS expert.
I always put a call in to Joe, but I just said it out loud.
Joe has a new job.
I know.
Hey, Carla, we'll have to take a look at those particular ones. We haven't run into that yet, so I think I need to look to see what's been entered specifically for those 2 people.
Yeah. So we do still have an OSMIS section, and Joe is still very close to it, and things like that. You know, I would never know that that's happening, so we appreciate that. So if you wanted to, you know, send us that question so that we could get it to the right person.
Because I only asked it out loud because I didn't know if anybody else had experienced it.
Yeah, you know, and again, as we switched over that OSMIS, you know, I was excited to have it functioning and ready. I was all excited. My big thing was, you know, a dislocated worker, you get to put the company name in. You can search by that. Woohoo! That was a big woohoo for me. You know, thanks Joe for making that happen.
Yeah, I think we've had a few kind of things like that have come up. So certainly, yeah, if you run into anything like that, please be letting us know so that we can get that taken care of.
I think fiscal people will just start seeing probably some of the new MARS things as you're doing closeout and having, you know, and debating, you know, what category, cost category am I putting that in? And so anyone who's never used MARS are going, what are you talking about? So I won't get too deep into that, but other things. This is your opportunity. We really want to be partners in this. We truly do.
And we are sending some note cards around the room, so if you're shy, please write your question or your concern down on those note cards and leave those on your chairs, and we'll make sure that we get those addressed as well.
So, and just so you know, you guys, as you are learning, so are we. So as often as I like getting the questions from areas that I work with, because if I don't know it, I'm going to research it, we're going to find it out. I have colleagues that I go to that are experts in other areas. And so I'd be glad to give their personal numbers out to you, ladies.
And certainly, I mean, we definitely want to hear from you where you feel like you need more technical assistance. Because again, if we feel we're in a position to provide that, we absolutely will do that. But that also helps for us to identify as we're having conversations with the Department of Labor in Chicago, to let them know where we as a state think we need technical assistance from them as well, and helps to guide the provision of that assistance at that level. So we definitely really do want to hear from you.
And how do you like to receive that technical assistance? In a memo, in a webinar, in person? What works best at this, you know, at this juncture? All of the above.
If it's you, Maggie, in person.
In person. I know nothing, I'm just here for entertainment.
Maggie, we like them, all of those. It just depends on what level of technical assistance we need.
Okay.
Sometimes it may be maybe just on email, it may be a webinar, maybe in person. It just depends on the situation itself.
And I got to tell you, I think that you guys are very fortunate that you have Janet Bloomfield now with the association, as she has been such an intricate, she has been so involved in program. So many of the times when you guys ask program questions, you know, and Janet will send it to us, you know, sometimes she's got to reword it for us because we're not all program people. So we wanted to make sure we're getting the right people to present you the right information, that we're looking and doing our research for you, but we do need to know from you what do you need. And is it that you've got a new region and you're coming together and you want someone from WDA to come over and go through this, this, and that? We do have state cars. I have a driver's license. They let me out every once in a while. So, you know, and we have others that are experts in what they do. So we want to make sure that we get you the right person so that it is an informational and educational system, session. Other comments? Questions? Questions? You can ask questions. We don't always give answers, Mary.
It would be helpful to have a list of all the required policies. We know there's some newer ones in WIOA, and we have developed our own list, but maybe we've missed something.
You send me that list and I'll see if it compares to my list.
I think we do have some level of that information in the manual. I think we've spelled out in certain cases. Not a bullet.
She just, yeah, that's right. So, and did we mention the manual is, you know, we're working towards it to get it out to you. I think that it's a great place to keep everything in one place. I think that you will like it. And again, as there's things that need to be changed in it, let us know.
And if you don't already have it, here's our contact information. But
I'm a specialist, not a manager. Just make sure you know that.
But we definitely appreciate you all taking time to come and speak with us during the session today. And we really hope that you found it informational and informative.